All right. Well, how you guys doing?
I'm doing all right, I suppose. And
Well,
yourself?
Good, good. I'm doing well. For those who don't know, you're over in Japan right now.
Yes, I am. It is a lovely
Yeah,
36 degrees outside right now at 9 a.m.
9 a.m. There you go. You gotta love technology.
Yeah, right?
And Sheba, how are you?
I'm fine. I can't complain. It's a little chilly here too, in
Yeah,
upstate New York. So
I
trying to
think
keep
y'all are
warm.
yeah.
colder.
I bet. Did you get a lot of snow?
Not really. It not really hasn't really gotten a. We didn't have a lot of snow. We had some snow, but not a lot.
Okay. Well, hopefully spring is upon us. I'm done with winter already.
Hey, I'm with you there. I'm definitely with you on
So
that.
we wanted to go live tonight, have a little discussion about some things happening out in the world. Of course, we're a couple of days removed from the Super Bowl, big story, especially if you're in the hip hop, the halftime show. I thought going into it that it was going to be a big moment, a big moment in terms of Super Bowl halftime shows, the history of entertainment, certainly a big moment in terms of hip hop and what it means for a genre and a culture that, really started in the 1970s. Finally now, here in 2022, making it to the big stage. I mean, in some ways you could argue this is the validation of hip hop. I mean, once you make it to the halftime show, you've made it in pop culture by certain measurements. So it was a big thing. And I wanted to kind of get people's thoughts on it. Some people, as with everything in this climate, some people loved it, some people hated it. So what do we think?
I liked it. I had a few questions, but I liked it. I enjoyed them getting out there doing their thing and they, like you said, hip hop just kind of took that whole stage over. And no, I thought it was a real good look. So you see a
And
lot of
maybe while
memes.
we're at it, we should. Go ahead.
I was gonna say there were a lot of memes when the
Oh,
initial teaser was going up about the performers, and people were tweeting about like, oh, I heard there's gonna be some football being played at the Eminem and Dr. Dre show.
mm. I was
Okay.
going to say, while we're at it, we should probably introduce ourselves, especially give the connection to hip hop. I mean, the reason why we're
Oh,
discussing this, Jay Carter, you may know him as Timid, the noted hip hop MC.
yes, yes, yes. And then of course you yourself went
That's
by
right.
the name Paisan at the MC Skills.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we've done a lot of work together in the music game, performed all across the country.
Yep,
Uh,
I
definitely.
have
and
no connection to hip hop
with
except the
that,
music. I said I really have no connection except
you have
listening
no
to the
connection?
music. I couldn't say that because it was when it started where in New York.
Yeah.
That's
Okay, so
right.
yeah, I have
In the Bronx.
I have a connection to it in the city, yes. But
So
one thing I liked about the halftime show was the boots that Mary J. Blige wore. Oh, I was like, oh, I could take those boots.
You like
she
the
was.
boots?
Oh, I loved them.
Someone said on Twitter that she should come out with a line of boots.
Yes.
I guess her boot game is
Really?
well known.
Right.
Yeah. What do you think of the show?
Yeah, so um, me or Sheba?
What did I
You
think of it?
asking me or Sheba? Go ahead,
Either
Sheba.
or. Sheba.
I liked it. I thought it was a very nice show. And although Snoop wore his Crip colors, I still like him.
Okay. I guess that was one of the criticisms.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. One of my things was, I mean, that and I understand that criticism. I really do. And doing the crip walking and all of that, I really understand that criticism. My thing was more from a performance standpoint,
uh-huh.
because, and I'm sure it happens on all the performances, but the way the setting was set up, and it was a nice set. It was a really good set with the different, houses and the different, backdrops inside there. But they had the back walls up, so half of the stadium couldn't see
Mm,
what was going on inside the thing. Instead of just, they could have just pulled that wall out and
right.
made it a
They
see-through
must have
thing.
gotten it on the screen. but they couldn't see it in person.
Yeah, and I assume that's what it was, but it's just like I was just thinking that for some reason it just like irked me. I'm like, just
that wasn't as impressive as it could have been. I think you're right on that. I mean, for the production value that you're expecting, right? You want something a little bigger, better. Of course, a lot of people talking about 50 Cent hanging upside down, and some people are trying to say that he gained weight. I don't know, but you know, for those who don't know, that was supposed to be a recreation of the In the Club video, so it wasn't just like a random scene.
Right.
They were trying to recreate that.
But come on, he did look like 60 Cent, like a little bit, like, you know, he's been eating
That's
good.
not right.
He's been eating, and look, he
Good eating in Texas.
He shared some of those memes too. So look,
I know. I guess it's all in good time. But
yeah,
somebody did make a valid point, I think, that he's not going to see a lot of the memes. I mean, he sees some of it, but you know, everyone's having a conversation about this. If they're making fun of him, he's not going to see most of that, and quite frankly, he's probably not going to care. But it could affect someone else who sees it. Like if you know you have a friends list, you might make fun of him to your friends, but maybe one of your friends might see that and feel hurt about, you know, if they don't feel confident in themselves. What do you think about that criticism?
I mean, it's I hear that, but at the same time, like you know, are we gonna just cut out all kind of jabs and barbs? That's I don't know. I think it's I think
it's being taken a little bit. I think it's being taken a little bit out of context because they were doing something that was retroactive.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was about. Something that was retroactive. And for those that may not have been around when Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and Mary J. Blige and 50 Cent started performing. So I thought that was good to go retroactive and also bring it to the future.
Right, that was with the Kendrick Lamar piece.
Yeah.
But my thing is, on that point, Sheba, I felt like, you know, the show was only, was it like 13 minutes, 12 minutes? They jammed a lot into that short amount of time to the point where you were expecting more. Like, you know, they're announcing it as Dr. Dre, I think Snoop, and Eminem, and I think they mentioned Kendrick and Mary as well. They did not advertise 50, so he was unadvertised. But you only got the one Eminem song. I don't know if Snoop even did a full song. Dre did a few of his songs. I like the Tupac dude on the piano that he played. But that would be my critique. If I was in charge of that, I think I would have probably taken one or two of those artists off to give more time to the others.
Oh.
Yeah, I agree. I feel the same way when watching. I'm thinking, wait a minute, like M only went once, 50 did just like half a verse. Like, where's, you know, there's, you know, and I guess it was supposed to be, maybe it was supposed to be it was honoring Dre, and so these were people that through Dre came to the forefront, and so it wasn't really about them. It was more about Dre. So
you know what? In my opinion, then it should have been advertised as a Dr. Dre Super Bowl performance, and have the rest be his guests, right? Because when you're advertising all of these artists, you are expecting more from each of them, but you just can't fit them all in time unless you just like do bits and pieces of multiple songs.
And I can see that. I understand that what you're saying, but still, these artists, those songs were songs that were hits too.
Right.
Extremely popular songs, hits. So that's that all that played into this to that halftime show too. And I like the fact that he did give the artist a chance to come out and say, like, you made this song a hit for me. You made that song popular for me. So that was a good, you know, it worked out. I mean,
he was the maestro.
Yeah. So was it the best ever?
I like that as well.
Or was,
you know what's funny? When I worked in Albany, I worked on a Senate resolution honoring Prince when he passed. And New York State Senate actually passed this resolution. One of the points on it was that he was the best Super Bowl halftime performer. But interestingly, it wasn't the Super Bowl halftime show that was honored, but his press conference that he did, which was a legendary press conference where he did an impromptu performance. Nobody was expecting it. It was for the media at the time. that was considered the best Super Bowl halftime moment or performance, if you want to call it that, ever, even though it didn't take place at halftime. People certainly cite the Prince performance. They also cite the Michael Jackson. But I think this one is in the conversation, if only for its historic value.
Oh.
Yeah.
What do you think? You seem like pondering something there, Timothy.
I don't know best ever, like I said, because some of like the points that you brought up, as far as like it felt like you wanted more from different artists and stuff. So I kind of got that same feeling, like it was.
That's not me trying to put it down or critique it, really. I guess if I had to nitpick.
Absolutely, but I mean, I identify with that same feeling. So when I think about best ever, like I can't go to best ever because I feel that same way. Like, yeah, it felt like there should have been more because of how it was advertised.
I hear you.
So, yeah,
I hear you.
Was it good?
It would have been nice if it had been the entire half hour halftime, right? Just go from 8 to 8:30, and that was it. That would have been great. A lot of people, though, that I'm seeing on my timeline are responding very positively. Even people I didn't think were hip hop fans. Some people say that outright they're not hip hop fans, but they really enjoyed that performance. The energy of it, what it did.
A lot of people, but you know, there were some who were not happy and disgruntled, and then there's also the game who apparently thought that he should have been included.
Who?
The Game.
Oh,
exactly.
Oh,
I guess. Exactly.
Yeah, that kind of sums that one up. What did you think of the controversy? I know some people try to make a big deal about Eminem briefly taking a knee.
Oh, I didn't give too much thought to that, but was that the right time and the right place to do that after this fabulous performance?
After what?
I said after that fabulous performance of all the
that fabulous performance. No, I mean, but an interesting thing about the timing, though.
I don't know.
But to that point, though. See, a lot of people who were against the whole idea of taking the knee said that it wasn't the right time to do it during the national anthem. But he wasn't doing it during the national anthem. He just did it during a rap performance, really. So why is that disrespectful?
Well, that wasn't what that was about, you see? And maybe that performance wasn't about, shouldn't have been politicized. That was a political statement.
Okay.
I don't think that they were giving political statements in the music that they sung or performed. The performers or their music, they weren't giving political statements. They were entertaining.
Well, but two of the songs did make reference to those issues. One of them happened to be censored. That's another thing I guess we can touch upon. On the Kendrick Lamar song, they actually censored the line he said about police. When Dr. Dre did Still Dre, they let him say "Still Not Loving Police." He did say it like he wasn't quite sure of himself. I don't know if he thought that maybe he was afraid of the controversy or something. The way he said it, it didn't seem like as emphatic as you would expect him to say it. But nonetheless, that was in there. So I mean, just to play devil's advocate, those messages are in the songs that they're performing.
Right, but that was at a time. You have to look at the time. Well, I guess you could say the time is kind of shaky, because the time that they were doing that was like in what they call in the hood songs. It wasn't songs where you're out there on the stage for everybody to take.
So you think you should have been presented in a more universal appeal type way, where they, not to be divisive at that moment?
Right. Because I don't think, the song is what it is. I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to take away from their experience or what they've gone through. That's not what I'm saying here. But I'm saying, I think, did Eminem, okay, let me ask this question. Did Eminem have a political song along from Dr. Dre?
He did Lose Yourself. That was all he was able to do, right?
Right.
So what was that about then? I mean, I could see Snoop Dogg taking a knee. I could see Dr. Dre, even Mary. But of course, she didn't want to mess up those fabulous. But you know what I'm saying?
That's an interesting take.
No, I don't really.
I hear you.
I don't really. Eminem has shown that he has been a supporter of Kaepernick and of that movement, and he's been an ally in this fight against police brutality against Black people, and he's in, he's in hip hop music. So I thought it was perfectly fine. My question was more of like the taking a knee protest was to call out police brutality against Black people, and my question was, why was he the only one who did it? I would have liked to see them all do it, right? The only, why was he the only one? Now, if it was the right time, I think it was the right time. Anytime's the right time for that. And I think that was, great. I just want to know why he would have been the only one. Why didn't Dre do it? Why didn't Snoop? These are, Dre is famous for F the Police, which was talking about, police violence against Black people in the hood, a young got bad because I'm brown was another in their other songs. So, Snoop has been roughed up by the police. Kendrick Lamar has spoken on it in his records. Like, why was M the only one who took the knee amongst the sea of Black folks who should have been taking the knee if that was going to be a statement? So that was my
and the fact that only he did it, and for that brief moment there between songs, it almost was easy to miss that it was a statement, because I saw some people even debating whether that was just him kind of like fading into the background to allow Dre to do his thing, put the spotlight on Dre. If they all would have done it, it would have been very clearly a political statement.
Right. Yeah, I look, I'll be honest, I missed it the first time through. I missed it that's what he was doing it for. I just like, oh, Eminem is kneeling for, it's, I guess, Dre's time right now. I don't know. It didn't really,
Right.
But to your point, to talk about police brutality, that's been going on for so long. What I liked about hip hop is that they had a chance to express that. Because when I was younger, coming along, and the police brutality, which was going on among Black people, Black and brown people, it was expressed, it was talked about, but it wasn't on a larger platform. They brought it to a larger platform.
Right.
When, you should keep that, probably the attitude is, you should keep that quiet. It should be talked about on your kitchen table. And they were like, no, you have to know what's going on and how we feel.
Right.
So, and with him taking the knee, it really meant, it would really have meant, it didn't move me either anyway, because those Black men that were out there have expressed verbally what has been happening to us and how it has hurt us to a very high level.
So you don't think that it's good for someone to show support of that feeling and kind of bring that further into the conversation?
But was he doing it for support, or was he doing it for show? Which one?
Gotcha. So you think it might not be a genuine display?
Right. What was he doing it for? Well, yeah. So is that the question is, ask Eminem instead of, what were you doing it for? Was it for show or was it for support?
Right.
Yeah, that's a legit question. I would give him the benefit of the doubt because of past statements and motions, like when he did his thing against
the BET,
the BET
that's
thing,
right.
And
right.
But yeah, the question, yeah, sure. You can ask that question as well, like, would it be, because it would be obviously news making and controversial. And so it would play, as far as performance wise, it would play very well in that type of environment to make like talk, you know what I mean? But I'd give them the benefit.
We are live on Facebook, so we're interested in people's thoughts on all this. I don't know if you guys have the video up. I don't have it up on my phone, so if one of you guys can pull it up and see if anyone is engaging with us here.
Well, James Powers said he thought Springsteen and Prince are tied for the best halftime show ever, and Michael Jackson was great too, but this was really good though. So Prince is usually the ones that people are saying the best, yeah. So
the Springsteen one, I didn't think of that one in that conversation. That's an interesting pick.
Yeah, I don't remember that one. I don't remember Michael Jackson's one either. I'm not a Super Bowl
And of course,
guy.
you had the controversial one with Janet and Justin, but that was, I guess, not considered one of the greatest, just one of the most memorable, right? For the controversy.
Right. Infamous.
Right, infamous. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a good show though. It was still. I still
Yeah,
enjoyed
no,
it.
and I was saying that this opens the door. Now, maybe for more hip hop at the Super Bowl, maybe we can do an East Coast version next time Super Bowl comes out east.
I did have a cynical
like to see that.
thought. I did have a cynical thought about that.
Yeah.
Because the what was it, last year? I believe it was last year or the year before, when Adam Levine did the Super Bowl, and this was after the George Floyd murder, and the whole, since the whole taking a knee protest was, to highlight police brutality. So there was a lot of Black performers who turned down doing the Super Bowl, the previous Super Bowl, to support that movement. And then Adam Levine took it, and then people were like, it was criticizing him and whatnot. Because I remember even Cardi B famously was like, nah, I wouldn't do it. So
Yeah.
the cynical thought was that they made it so hip hop this year to try to get back in the good graces of that constituency, that mass of the Black community that was shunning it previously. And they're like, okay, well, look, we're really nice and cool here. Here, have all this Blackness.
But you know what's weird about that? You see people on both sides of this issue say that they're so turned off from football because of the controversy, right? People on one side say that they won't watch football anymore because of the kneeling, I guess. And then people on the other side say, well, Colin didn't get a job, and they didn't do a good enough job protecting him, protecting the movement. So everyone is saying that they're turned off, but yet everyone is still seemingly watching it. I mean, the ratings are still very high, aren't they?
Yeah. I haven't watched. I don't watch it anyway, so it's easy for me to continue to protest the Super Bowl.
You've been doing it all along.
I've been doing it all along. I was before Kaepernick. Yeah. So.
Right. Now, I posted something on Twitter about, I just can't get into football because of the rules of the game. It's just, sometimes things just bother me. Like the whole intentional grounding thing where you can throw the ball away, but you can't do it, stop the clock if it's too obvious, but you can if it looks like you're kind of making an effort to not be obvious. Like, what are you doing here? Like, as a lawyer, that kind of stuff bothers me. Like, you're not fooling anybody.
I like to play, but watching sports on TV has always bored me. I'm
kind of the same. At least when I was younger, I liked to play sports, but not watch them as much.
Yeah. So, but.
James commented again.
I hear we have another comment from James.
Yeah, I see that. He was talking about, he was just confirming the Michael Jackson one, saying that it was in 1993.
93, yeah.
Yeah. So I missed a lot of them because like I said, I never really had that kind of interest. And anytime, to me, the Super Bowl was always, it was Super Bowl commercials and then halftime show. Like the game was not even a part of it, and I didn't watch the
tertiary. This was a good game. I gotta say that.
Yeah.
It was good. I saw it. It was something. Yeah, it was something different. So I said, I'll watch it. It was good. That was a pretty good show. I really liked it.
Good. Well, there you go. We can move on to the vaccine mandates, and we wanted to talk about that, what's going on in the city and the state of New York, and I guess more broadly what's happening nationwide with that. But the mayor is announcing he's laying off, I think it's 1,430 workers roughly for refusing to get vaccinated. These are city workers in New York City. So I guess before we begin on the law, on some of these legal challenges, maybe distinctions between vaccine mandates at the state, city, and federal levels, we can just get into general thoughts about, do we think that there should be a vaccine mandate? Should it be a choice? Like, what do we think about that?
I think it should be a choice.
I agree.
I don't think it should.
And why? Why do you think that?
Because people should have a right to. Well, first of all, your civil liberties have been being taken away when they mandate vaccines, and I think people should have that right to say, if I want to get the vaccine or if I shouldn't get the vaccine. I think that's a constitutional right.
Okay. Okay. Let me push back a little bit, but go ahead, Tim. I see you want to say something.
No, I was saying I agree that I'm not in favor of the mandates. I don't like it. I think it's a very uncomfortable thing to mandate the vaccine because again, I think we've talked about before that idea of slippery slope and how it's often used, but there is potential for there to be anything that can be mandated to that point. And we're talking about a toxic substance that is being injected into people's bodies, and there are no long-term studies at this point. Now, on the other hand, I do understand
being an anti-vaxxer. Get ready for the hate mail.
No, I'm not saying that because the vaccine works. It
does
what
it's
supposed to do.
I don't mean to put words in your mouth. I'm just saying that like this topic is so delicate that you can, if you make any point at all, prepare for the heat.
I think the vaccine does what it's supposed to do. It's doing how it is, but I think that mandate is kind of the issue. Now, it's not the first time. I mean, if anyone that's worked in fast food, you've had to do like the TB tests or if you've worked around if you're in the military, there are vaccines that you have to have. There are things that you have to have usually for school, and that's always been, so it's nothing new. But I think it's being that it is a new vaccine is kind of a
I think it's a
well then let me ask you this though. You think it's a personal choice? But do you think, though, that there's a difference between a private company mandating it and the government mandating it, or should there be? Does the company have a choice to say we want people who are vaccinated to work here?
I think they do. I don't like it, but I think they do have that choice because I mean, they it's a private company. They can make their rules.
But I'm trying to get to whether you think they should, not what the law is, but I'm just, what is your belief on that?
I don't like it.
No, I don't either. No, I don't. I think you can have the testing to make sure that people are COVID-free. You can have them do weekly testing for those that are probably immunocompromised. Maybe they would need the vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think a person that's healthy that does not have any health issues should receive the vaccine.
I hear you, but two questions that I guess. If I'm starting my own company, let's say it's a small business, I only hire a few people, do I have a constitutional right to determine whom I hire in terms of, do I want people who are vaccinated or non-vaccinated? Does that implicate my rights at all, or is it only the rights of the people working for me, number one? And number two, do you have to balance public health interests with private rights, especially in a pandemic like this? I mean, constitutional rights are always narrower in public health crises and wars, for example.
No, I think you'd have the right to say like we prefer people here vaccinated. I just don't like the environment that creates, and this idea that people get fired because they didn't get vaccinated when the vaccine, what it does is mainly, I mean, you do carry a lower viral load, but it's mainly helps you get through it easier if you catch COVID. But I guess it does slow down the spreading of it, but just the mandate doesn't sit right with me. The mandate doesn't. So it's really,
so let's kind of take a step back. It's really just the mandate, not even about the vaccine. Any kind of mandate you kind of are viscerally opposed to when it comes to the government forcing you to do something, especially if it's a medical decision.
Well,
and I think,
Go ahead.
I think people would have, if it wasn't mandated, I think people would have done it for public health reasons, for safety's sake. Because if I have a small child, and I think they may get COVID, then okay, I'm going to protect myself because I want to protect my child. But like Timon is saying, when you say I have to do this, then that's like crossing that fine line.
Mm. So you think people rebel because they're told they have to? Now they don't want to, even if they would have done so if it was voluntary.
Right.
Some,
I think that
I think some. Yeah,
Some,
I
right?
think, I think another big thing of the vaccine is that it's very new, and so there are no long-term studies on this particular one, and they can say, well, no, it's the answer to that is no. It has been studied for a long time, and they're talking about going back to 2003, 2004 when the mRNA technology was being invented. They've been studying that for use for years, but it wasn't for use with this vaccine. It was just that delivery method. And so I think the part of it is that it's new. These vaccines take time, 10 years or more, to get some long-term studies and to get some results, even though this very unusual circumstances now, they've had like 1 billion doses delivered, and so they're getting data much quicker than they could before, but we still don't know what's going to happen 5 years out.
right.
But don't you think this is also very politicized? I mean, people seem to be against it just because Democrats are saying do it, right? No matter what it is. It could be the mask, it could be the vaccine. I mean, how much of it is genuine? How much of it is just this is what my team says?
But
I don't know. But if all those arguments are in good faith.
But I told in the delivery method. First, she said if you get the vaccine, you won't get COVID. Okay, people have gotten the vaccine, and they have gotten COVID. First, they said you could take off your mask. You're okay. You don't have to wear your mask. Then they said, oh, for health reasons, wear your mask. And I don't think the issue is not so much mandates or the COVID, or the vaccines. I think the issue is people, you tell people one thing one day and you tell them something next the other. Like a month.
There's already a lot of distrust, and that just makes it worse. So, I understand that.
So
I mean, for the record, I am pro-vaccine, and I do hear what both of you are saying about mandates, just in terms of infringing upon individual liberties. I like people to have choices to make their own decisions with what they do, but I also recognize the fact that we are in a public health crisis, and it's been going on for years now, and it's very frustrating to a lot of people. And it's a very dangerous pandemic that so it's still a global pandemic that we're in the middle of. And I do think that those individual liberties have to be balanced against public health concerns, because people are going to say that they have a right to not die from COVID. I mean, I know that's not a constitutional right, but people have an interest in the public being as safe as we can be here.
Yeah, and listen, I understand the immensely difficult position that the government is in and the medical community is in regards to this, because I think the mandates really came about, to me, I think the mandates really came about because people pushing back on doing the very simple things of hand washing and wearing their masks, because they're saying, oh, you're treading on my civil liberties. But then the cases keep going up and people are like, listen, we need to fix this. We need to get back to normal. And so the government's under pressure to do something. And so then it's like, okay, well, we've got a vaccine. Well, people are like, I'm not taking that. And so they're still not wearing their mask. And so like the government's, it's like, do something, fix it. And so now it's come to a mandate. So they're under immense pressure to do something. We want it fixed, even though that's not how reality works. So I think part of it is, it's part of it, the people's fault. Part of it is, scientists with their thoughts and their ideas. But so, I mean, my position isn't one of that I only think this because of, some conspiracy or because of some of this. Like, I understand there's pressure all around on it. And then on this point, I think in the chat, we've got James is talking about said he's immunocompromised. And so he can't make the antibodies even after getting the vaccine. He's had 3 doses so far and still doesn't have them. And so for people like him, people around you being vaccinated makes it a little bit safer for him. So it's a it's not an easy question. I think again, to me, the mandates are an issue. The vaccine being very new, is an issue, and then it doesn't. The idea of for the public health is great and very utopian, but it doesn't answer questions like, for example, you know, 2 people in my family got the vaccine. One was hospitalized for a week. The other one was in and out of the emergency room 4 times in 2 weeks, and still 3 months in dealing with effects from the vaccine. And so the drug companies.
But that's anecdotal, though.
I'm sorry?
That's not based in data. That's anecdotal, right? That's not based in data.
No, that's not. It's that they went to the hospital for side effects of the vaccine.
Oh no, yeah, I understand. I'm not doubting that it happened.
So my point is from that standpoint, how do you address those individuals who got the vaccine for the greater good, for the public health, and then now they've got potentially long-term effects. That's financial burden on them. The drug companies aren't liable for it. Their doctors aren't going to treat them for free. And so this is their reality now, trying to do something else, and there's no recourse for that either. So
it's a tough situation. And that's why I said, that's what I made the statement about it, because I think if they didn't have so many, when you look back at Fauci and some of the CDC personnel, doctors, they had so many. They would tell you something one week, and the next week they're telling you something else. So it gets to the place, and that's a scary thing, because if you can't trust the person that knows about this in detail, it leaves room for saying, well, I don't want to bother with it. And I'm not taking away from you, Mike, being pro-vaccine, but it does give rise to an issue. Should I or shouldn't I? If I take it, will I be ill? If I take it, what's the long-term effect? 5 years, like you said, 5 years out from now. And people think about these things because still in all, and I understand it being a pandemic, but still in all, 5 years down the road, you still could be dead. And people think like that. It's all, and it's hard to control, I think, people.
Yeah, but the rate people are dying now.
Right.
We all be dead if we don't get not enough people get the vaccine. So,
Yeah.
I understand where you're coming from. Part of my frustration when I read the news coverage on this is there's always lawsuits challenging all these mandates at every level of government, but the articles don't often tell you. In fact, they very rarely tell you why, like what legal argument is being made and what the judge's rationale is. So you'll just see an article that says such and such mandate was struck down by a court, or such and such mandate was upheld by the court, and you have no idea from reading the article what that's about, why it happened, what the circumstances were. And I think that feeds into the cynicism as well, because people just think it's arbitrary. It depends on maybe just what judge you get, like the roll of the dice. And to a certain degree, that's true. It does depend on the kind of judge you get, but it also depends on the court you're in, the legal arguments you make, and the laws that are implicated. Like on the federal level, there were a few mandates that were implemented, one of which was for all large companies to have vaccines or for their employees, or to be tested every week. And that was actually struck down on the grounds that Congress had already passed legislation listing basically what the federal power was and what the president could and couldn't do to regulate that. And they said that I took some notes here. This was the OSHA requirement for a vaccination or a test. So that was struck down by the Supreme Court on January 13th. And they had said that Congress gave OSHA, or basically the executive branch, we'll call it the president, the power to regulate workplace and occupational dangers, but they did not consider regulating the public health broadly an occupational danger. So they struck that down. But they did uphold, and this was a per curiam decision, meaning there were no dissents. The entire court just made this decision. In the case of Biden v. Missouri, they upheld the Secretary of Health and Human Services requirement for health care facilities to make sure that all their workers were vaccinated, and they tied that to Medicare and Medicaid funding. But the reason why they upheld that one was because Congress had passed a law saying that that particular individual, that secretary, could tie the funds for Medicare and Medicaid to necessary requirements in the interest of healthcare and safety. So basically the arguments there, if you wanted to distinguish those cases, was Congress had already passed laws saying what could be done and what couldn't be done in that field. And they found that the one requiring all employees of large companies to get vaccinated was outside the bounds of the law Congress passed already. So Congress already spoke on this. So this wasn't even really decided on constitutional grounds. They were saying that Congress had already said what was allowed here and what wasn't allowed. They said Congress had allowed explicitly, basically, the healthcare workers mandate, but not the large company employees generally. But then you also had one about federal employees, and this one might look like the one that Mayor Adams did in New York City, where he required city workers to get the vaccine. One of the mandates was, President Biden said that federal workers had to get vaccinated. Now that one was hit with a preliminary injunction, which was issued by district court in Texas. Judge Jeffrey Brown, Southern District of Texas, issued this decision on January 21st. And he cited the Supreme Court decisions that had just been passed, just come down. He said that Congress gave the executive branch the power to set employment regulations, but this did not fit as an employment regulation. It's beyond the president's authority, so Congress would have to pass a law imposing vaccines, and the president couldn't do it with the stroke of a pen. In the city, there's no such law. The city council doesn't have a law that was passed in New York City that takes that power away from the mayor. The mayor has broad power in the city to regulate what goes on with the city workers. So far, there have been several lawsuits to try to strike that down, and they have not been successful. However, there is still pending litigation. They're on different grounds, though, right? The federal ones are about what Congress can and can't do, mainly. In the city, there are arguments like it violates religious freedoms, but so far those have not been successful. So just kind of wants to break down some of the differences between the federal mandates and the local ones, and why certain ones were upheld and others weren't.
Yeah, and the thing that happened in New York with you said 1,400 people, that's just a lot of people out of work, especially at a time like this. It's not a very comfortable situation. But I mean, again, I can see both sides of the argument. It's just difficult all the way around.
It is.
But 1,400 people. James mentioned, we were talking about potential long-term effects of the vaccine, and in the chat, he said that there's possible long-term effects from COVID as well, which is absolutely true.
That's right.
It's absolutely true. So it's scary.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm not saying that I'm timid, but I'm with you on that. It's scary. I see both sides. I see both sides of the argument in this. I really do.
Yeah. And so how is that going to affect New York, though? Think about it. 1,400 people all at once, just boom, you're out of a job.
Yeah.
Well, the mayor said that basically they're quitting because they had adequate warning, and they chose to do this. Some did it as a political statement. So, you get what you get. Some people just said, if you're making me choose between my job and getting the vaccine, I'm choosing not to have the job. But it is an unfortunate situation. We don't want to see this many workers laid off, especially in a time like this where there's just so much uncertainty and scare happening. And with good reason.
Absolutely.
This has been some pandemic because this has divided families. People have, I've heard people say, you can't, they have not seen their grandchildren. Absolutely. And they won't see their family. I've heard that because of them not getting a vaccine. Parents don't agree with it. They won't give it to the child. So grandparents can't see their grandchild. I mean, this is really something. I mean, I'm just lost for words with this.
Yeah. Well, it's the
political climate scary.
It is. It's very scary. And I think we can hope that this is temporary. And this is not the first time that we as a people have gone through a pandemic. You know, the 1918 flu pandemic was 2 years and killed upwards of 50 million people worldwide by most estimates. And you know, in that time, we did the same thing. There was hand washing, there was masks, there was social distancing, and you know, people fought against it. People fought against wearing the masks. You know, they called them mask slackers in the media because they wouldn't wear their masks. And you can see old photos from back then with people at like sporting events wearing masks and stuff. So it's not new, but the thing to remember is that we got through it, and we can do it again. It's just, we're just in that time. It just hasn't happened in our lifetime, but we're in that time right now.
I wear my mask.
Here's the thing with the mask. It's so funny.
I wear it.
It's funny because being out here in Japan, right? And we're looking at people in the States freaking out about wearing masks, and people screaming at each other in the store. Oh, it's my civil liberties. You're trampling on my rights to make me wear a mask. A very uninvasive type of action. Here, mask wearing is so commonplace. This is before the pandemic. So commonplace. People wear them all the time, whether it's allergy season, whether it's cold outside and they just want to put it on to warm their face up. Women will put on masks sometimes because they didn't feel like putting on makeup that day. So they'll just wear the mask at work. Like, that's how common it is. And people watching people in America freak out about it. It's so foolish and funny.
Because it was mandated.
Even before, just mandated. I think mandate's part of it. But it's just so funny.
That's why it was, you know. But I wore my mask regardless. They didn't have to mandate nothing for me. I'm going to do everything to stay safe.
Yeah, get your mask, rock it out properly. You can color coordinate it with your clothes and your sneakers and all that. Like, I mean, that's what we do, right? As humans, we take bad situations and we can try to work through them and make them better. So if we're wearing masks, hey, let's make that fit. You know, match it with your tie when you're wearing your suit. So like, you know what I mean? Like, we can get through that.
Well, my message, this is me speaking personally, is get vaccinated, wear your masks, do social distancing, take this very seriously because we're still in the middle of the pandemic, and every time it seems like we're over it, we're not. So let's keep taking this as seriously as we can. But I would like to move on, if we can, to lighter topics like maybe Dave Chappelle or the Olympics. Take your pick.
Yeah, either or. I think the Olympics was kind of interesting. I'm not watching are you watching the Olympics?
I'm watching some of it.
No.
I like the speed skating. Yeah, I'm watching the skiing. Yeah, I watch, and there's another one I watch. I'm trying to figure out how it became an Olympic game. I forgot the name of it.
Curling.
Yes, that's it. And I'm like, wow, because I said, you have to have a lot of arm strength to curling. So it's quite interesting.
But there was that controversy over the athlete who failed her drug test.
Right.
And she's apparently still Russian skater, still being allowed to compete despite failing the drug test. And some people have brought that up as contradictory, given that there was an athlete who failed a test last year but was not allowed to compete.
Right. So there were two main points here. One, because for athletes in general, because they all have the drug test requirements for any type of sports mainly, or even the Olympics or professional sports. And so she failed it but was allowed to compete. So athletes in general are like, hey, what's going on with this? And then there are people who are looking at what happened with Sheree Richardson, who was the track and field runner for the USA in the Summer Olympics, who failed her drug test when she smoked a little bit of marijuana after her mother passed, and she did that to help deal with the pressure and the grief that she was going through. And she was not allowed to compete in the Olympics, but this girl is allowed to compete. So people are looking for there to be a balance of whatever the issues are. And one, then there's others who are saying because Cherie's Black, and then the other girl's Russian white woman, white girl. Sorry, she's 15, and so there's there. So
yeah, that was an interesting point. That I guess it was an arbitration court, they call it. The Olympics have their own kind of hearing where they determine, it's like an appeal that you can appear before. And they cited some kind of policy that because she's 15, she's what they call a protected athlete. And so she's protected from the anti-dope rules somehow, which I find that to be a little strange. They say that because she's 15, she's protected. But the argument is that if they were to ban her from competing, she would suffer irreparable harm. And I guess they're saying that someone who is of age won't suffer harm, or maybe they just don't care about protecting the older ones because they think that they should know better.
Well, why does she take the medication?
That's the question that needs to be answered. And I haven't seen that in any news. Like to be clear, what the girl took, the gymnast, the 15-year-old gymnast, she apparently had this heart medication in her system. Now, nothing has been reported that I've seen that says she has a heart condition or that she's taking it for legitimate reasons. What this drug does increases blood flow to the heart. So it could be a performance enhancer in that regard. So we don't know why she took it, what was the use for it, but we know Cherie Richards took weed, and weed isn't a performance enhancing drug. If anything, it would kind of retard your performance a little bit. But
It'll make you look a little slower, right?
Yeah, right. You can see her like, I'm gonna win. Yeah, I'm not worried about nothing.
Was she a runner? What sport did she play?
The Cherie Richardson.
Yeah,
she's a sprinter.
Yeah.
Sprinter. Yeah, so she'll be sprinting like with a donut in her hands, and it's like having the munchies, I guess.
Yeah, right. She would not be sprinting very fast if she was high on weed. She just wouldn't care. So
I mean, that is, I think, a valid concern. You raised real questions. I mean, why was she taking the heart medication? Why do you consider weed to be performance enhancer? It's really not. Should it even be on the list of substances at this point? I mean, it's a pretty widespread drug, and it's legal in many places, increasingly more places now. So those are very real questions to ask. And also, there does seem to be a double standard here. I mean, maybe there are legitimate reasons for ruling one way in one case and another in another case, but it doesn't look good, right? I think we should ask for some kind of consistency or demand a better explanation for what's going on here.
Right. I agree.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't buy the argument that she's 15, so she falls outside of that, because that whole field, you look at the gymnastics and all of that stuff, those are all 12 to 16-year-olds competing at this Olympic world level. And so if you can do that, a performance enhancer is still going to give you an edge out of someone else doing the same thing. So I don't buy that, they're that age excuse.
I don't either.
Right. It struck me as interesting because in the law, we have what's called a protected class, but usually it's about a group that's discriminated against, racially or maybe sex-based discrimination, ethnic background, country of origin, things of that nature. But you don't usually hear of a 15-year-old being protected from anti-dope laws. That's just that struck me as kind of weird.
It kind of sounds like they got caught and this was an excuse,
Right. But apparently it is part of their policy, though. I don't think they just made that up. Apparently it's part of the policy that if you're 15, you get more protections, And that's another question. Should we expect athletes of all ages to take responsibility if they're going to perform for the Olympics, right?
I think when it comes to doping, yeah. I mean, I don't think that's like an age-based type of decision that needs to be, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think that's
It's something to be looked into with the Olympic Committee. I think whoever makes the rules, I think they need to go back and talk about it a little bit more, because I'm sure she's not the first. She probably was the first at 15. She probably was the first one that got caught, but maybe not the first. You know,
Well, I
probably
don't know
not.
if she was the first one to get caught, but I think it's just a big news story now because of what happened last year.
And I think, like I said, the main thing I think what the media needs to follow up with is why she had it in her system. Because if she has a heart condition and this is a legitimate thing that she's taken, then I think maybe you might have an argument for an exemption. But then it still can be a performance enhancer. And would that even be fair for other athletes that you're competing against, even if you're taking it for legitimate reasons? So
yeah, they need to really examine that. They really do. You know, I think.
Okay. Well, speaking of the media getting it right or not getting it right, Dave Chappelle, what's going on there?
Yes.
Apparently there was a story that he was trying to block affordable housing in his city, and then he came out more recently and said that wasn't the truth. The media kind of put their own spin on it, and it wasn't accurate. And I think the first reaction a lot of us are going to have is, well, they're out to get him right now because he's you know, kind of public enemy number one. But the media does do that sometimes. And to be fair, sometimes it's an honest mistake, but oftentimes there's an axe to grind and there's an agenda there. And oftentimes it's a combination of both, right?
Yeah, I think it's kind of sensationalism in this regard. You know, Dave Chappelle opposes affordable housing is much more of a sensational headline that's going to get clicks and views than Dave Chappelle opposes an ill-conceived land development in his community. I think, you know.
But that's always the debate. I mean, we see this in New York all the time. I mean, you know, we've been involved for years in what's going on in New York City. You see this debate is framed on both sides the same way, time and time again. I mean, you come out against any particular project, you might have very valid reasons for opposing it, but people on the other side are going to say that you hate poor people, you're against affordable housing, whatever it is. And we know that in New York City, especially, and I'm sure in Ohio as well, affordable housing is a buzz term. I mean, it's something I think we all kind of like the sound of and aspire to, but is it truly affordable? I mean, people use that as a feel-good term when it's not really what we're getting most of the time.
No, it's a difference between low-income housing and affordable. A huge difference. Because affordable can be $2,000 plus.
Yes. Yeah, affordable housing in Beverly Hills, you know, it'd be very, very different than affordable housing in Mobile, Alabama, you know.
Here's my beef also. That's a very good point. In New York, you look at the different counties that we have, and they could be in relatively close proximity geographically, but so far apart in terms of income levels. And so when they use the federal AMI, the area mean income, for our area, they're pulling in counties that are so disparate. So you can be in one area, and I forget the county, even within the county, you have so much difference. So you can be in one particular neighborhood, one particular area, and your area mean income is really artificially inflated by this figure that pulls in data from other counties where they're much more well off financially. So that's the problem. It's not really the area's mean income that they're looking at here.
I think what we do need to, before going forward, is make it clear that it came out Dave Chappelle wasn't opposing affordable housing because there wasn't any planned affordable housing at all. Like, this development company had purchased, I think it was like 52 or 54 acres of land, and they wanted to make these developments of $300,000 houses in that community. There was no plan that they were going to develop affordable housing. The city wasn't going to develop affordable housing. There was just a portion of the land that was going to have to be set aside for potential for affordable housing, but nobody was building it. Nobody was building anything. The thing that was going to be built were these other homes, and that's what Dave Chappelle and some of the others were opposing, because it would make the community less affordable, and it didn't take into account the culture and whatnot of the community. So I think
that the concerns about gentrification And also the concerns about burdening, like you said, the residents who live there in more ways than one. It can make it less affordable for them. It could also put a strain on their resources. I mean, we see this a lot. And people say that these are not good faith arguments, but they really are. I mean, if you're coming in and you're trying to build a project in a neighborhood, you should take into consideration the people who live there and how it's going to affect their lives. I mean, you look at things like strain on the infrastructure, the sewer system or the electric, the schools. Are you adding more classroom space? Are you going to overcrowd the schools even more by doing this? What about the traffic, the roads, the public transportation, police and fire? All of these things, parking, they have to be taken into consideration because it is people's lives that you're affecting here, and you do want to build housing that is truly affordable for people, but you also want to make sure it's done in a correct way, in the proper way, and that you don't overly burden the people who are already living there.
But Mike, I think this has happened to a lot of small towns in America, because I look at the town that
It's happened in New York City. But yeah,
the town that I'm in, and they were saying the town was going to run out of water because of all the construction that's going on. They have priced the people that I call them indigenous people that have lived here for years. They have priced us out. So it's a lot that goes on. The culture changes, and I think that's a fear too. The culture changes, and it gets to the place that there's no, because I would say this, a lot of the small towns, people knew one another. It's like a family, and when you know everyone. But when you have these developers that come in, and for some reason, city council or the mayor of that town goes along with them, what happens? Where's the voice of the people that were originally there? So I can see Dave Chappelle and the people that he was being the voice for, rebelling against these developers, or not rebelling, but saying, we don't want them here. They're going to change our lifestyle.
That's what ended up happening. He basically was the voice of the residents, and he threatened the city council by saying that I won't invest in a comedy club I believe he's planning to build there, which is going to be big for the community. I won't do that if you approve these changes. And they did go along with him.
Yeah, and it was more about, I don't know what the developer is going to stop building, but it's that they were protesting against city funds being used to assist in this development. And basically, Chappelle said, look, let's do big bank, take little bank. So the proposed contract was like 25 million. Chappelle's like, I've got 60 million around here invested and in this town. And so I'll take all that and walk for this 25 million that you're trying to push through that doesn't, do anything for the people.
Right, and that's the issue. And I think, like I said, a lot of these small towns, that has happened. And I think that town wanted to just put a stop to what they have seen going on in the small towns in America.
Yeah, and I think another component of that, to me, is that, and that kind of gives reason for Chappelle to speak up, and it hasn't been reported or whatever. This is what I think. It is a small town, right? It's a very small town. Chappelle's famously said it's a small town. He's out and about in the town because it just, it's that type of place. I think a big developer coming in, one, they come in and do this 50 acres of vacant land for cheap, but two, they can put these houses on there with the idea when they sell these houses that, hey, you're basically in the town living next to Chappelle, and you can mingle with this celebrity because he's out and about in this town. And I think that's, would be part of their selling point, at least maybe not verbally said, but like that idea.
Right, in there, that's baked there. And that's probably also why he's so eager to shut it down. I mean, aside from the other listed reasons that we cited, I'm sure he probably doesn't want to be used, basically being exploited for developers' gain.
All right, that's why people pay premiums in like Beverly Hills, and they pay premiums in other neighborhoods. It's because there's celebrities in there or famous people, and you might bump into them at the store. Or,
Yeah, especially with him planning to build a comedy club. It's like normally a comedian who's aspiring to get on might move to New York or Los Angeles. Hey, why don't I move to Yellow Springs, Ohio, with this new comedy club, and I can live next to Dave Chappelle.
Right. So. Yeah, I mean, because I mean, you see how much he is in the public. Like he's basically living a normal life out there to some degree. Because
Yeah.
you go into local
He said
town
that's what
halls.
he likes about it.
Yeah, he's going to the city council meetings and the
Yeah.
town halls and the grocery stores.
And, you know, when this happens to these towns like that, it comes to the place where you don't know anybody in the town anymore. And I think they want to safeguard that too.
Right.
You know, so it's like, it seems like it's like a family town, like maybe 2,000 people the most, population 1,500. They want to keep it that way.
He's also described it as a very progressive place, right? He said
Right.
it's kind of like, I think he once said it's kind of like Bernie Sanders country in the middle of Trump town or something like that. But
Yeah.
apparently, people live there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it was just media kind of ran with the sensational point of that without giving the rest of the meat.
Well, the media needs attention.
But do you think that is because they're just trying to make him look bad at this point?
Yeah.
I think that there could be some. I mean, making Chappelle look bad would definitely play into some good talk right now, because there's still the ongoing controversy in a lot of people's minds from his last special, The Closer, and so some bad news on Chappelle kind of helps for that type of argument, or just for controversial argument in general.
Right. There's controversy surrounding him, so you come up with a headline and a story that kind of feeds the controversy, which is more clicks and more money.
Right. Oh, you thought Chappelle was so great with his special here? Well, yeah. Well, look at this. He hates poor people. Here's your savior. Yeah. So.
Well, it was a good discussion. Any closing thoughts? We've been on here for a while. Went fast.
Yeah.
I don't think the game should have been included in the halftime show.
Oh man, or Sheba said who? That wasn't very nice, but that was inadvertent. I know that was an innocent who.
I do want to give one shout out though. One thing that I found really dope. Two actually. I didn't realize that was Anderson .Paak playing the instrument next to Eminem during the performance. But while everyone's giving everybody props on their performance and how hip hop was represented and thing, I think we should also recognize that the announcer was MC Light. I think that's hella dope.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're talking way, she's old school, and she's
Yeah.
going from there to now she's announcing for the NFL like it's nothing. I think it's great. Should be also mentioned.
Pop made it. It's a big moment. It's a big moment. And you know what? It might go down in history as a moment in American history, especially in light of what's going on in the world and in the country right now. The fact that hip hop can take center stage at the Super Bowl and have its moment is pretty significant. And I'm happy about that.
Somebody said to send me a pair of boots.
Here you go.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for the conversation. I appreciate it. Thank you to Facebook. Catch you guys next time.
Okay.